This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geek show number 608 with Marv B, recorded on May 16th, 2024. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the Average Guy.TV studios here in a beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. Although, Marv, we had Florida-style rain yesterday. I was trying to get home from work. It was raining 2 inches an hour. Like, you couldn't even see.
Wow.
You couldn't even see out the window. Yeah, it was pretty. Do you guys get that? You still get, like, I guess it'd be hurricane kind of rain.
I mean, listen, no, we get that kind of rain on a regular basis. Actually, it happened this morning. It rained hard for about 5 minutes, but it poured.
Okay. Yeah.
But we get that all the time. So it happens depending on where you are in the state. It happens at different times of the day on a regular schedule. It used to be 4:15 every day, hard rain, and then you're good.
For like 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Yep, 10, 15 minutes.
Couple cracks of thunder. We would joke about the same thing when I was stationed at Fort Ord in Monterey, California. We would say 4 o'clock, fog rolls in. You would have your sleeves up. You know, military those days, we'd roll our sleeves up in the summer. At 4 o'clock, everybody pulls them down because it's the fog's rolling in, and it would go from 75 to 55, you know, in about 40 minutes. And it'd be pretty cold. Yeah. Well, it rained hard. Like I haven't seen that kind of rain in a while, and some local flooding. And I drove through an intersection, and they closed the intersection 5 minutes later. Like, no, you can't go across this thing. So we've been, it's been raining a lot here, which is good. We were in a little bit of a drought. So anyways, we'll post the show with some world-class show notes at theaverageguy.tv. A big thanks to the guys from hometech.fm. The boys over there joined us last week. If you haven't caught that, it was a fun show. A little chat about home automation and some robot lawnmowers and some of those things for the future. More chat than anything else, but it was always good to have those guys on. So Gavin, thanks for getting Seth and TJ to come out and be a part of that. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. If you haven't joined the team and you want to do that, head out to theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. And we got one $5 plan. I keep it simple. If you want to do it 1 month or whatever, however many months you want, that's fine with me. For those of you who continue to support out there, appreciate it. Check it out, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. Well, you heard him already, but Marv B is back. Marv, great to see you. Welcome back.
Well, thanks for asking me to come back on.
Yeah, what's new in your podcast world? Anything? What are you doing podcasting wise at this point?
So podcast wise, we just finished a set of podcasts where we had different vendors on. We're actually getting ready to start another series. Each year, one of the big vendors, ConnectWise, they put together what's called a Pitch It competition. And it is to help new and emerging vendors in our industry. And they do a 16-week incubator where they have coaching, other vendors help them on how to give their pitches, how to talk to IT service providers, how to present their product, how to market, you know, all of that stuff, how to go to different conferences, because part of being a vendor is you've got to go to the conferences, you got to put somebody on stage. So they go through this super intense 16-week training, and then they pitch their product to IT service providers that then will pick winners. And so part of what I do is I will do introductory videos and podcasts with each of the vendors. And then when they're chosen at the end of the year, the top 3 do a competition in Orlando, Florida, and I will go and do a live broadcast of those. So that's what's coming up this summer. We're doing a solo tech series of podcasts. And we're putting that together now where we're going to do a whole bunch of podcast/peer groups where it's going to be about a 90-minute session each. And we're going to go through all the stages of starting and running an IT business, whether you're just getting started, whether you're in year 1 to 5, all the things you need to know about business licenses, how to set up your money, how to bill clients, what to look for in what we call the stack. What products do you use to support your customers? So it's going to be kind of like a small business incubator just for techs. So a lot of stuff coming up.
Nice. itbusinesspodcast.com is the place you need to go. If you haven't subscribed to it, get that. Why wouldn't you? So subscribe to it today and get that, get out there and listen to those upcoming, and go back and listen to a few. There's plenty to listen to out there. So, and I think you guys, you get it more into the nitty gritty, right? As far as kind of the details around some of these things.
So yeah, we talked with each vendor, and I asked the questions most people don't ask. We just finished up a series on marketing for the IT business. I spoke to a lady today, actually earlier this afternoon, about coming on to talk about burnout.
Oh, okay.
And we'll get into all these things to prevent yourself from getting, burnt out and fatigued in the business. So yeah, we cover lots of different areas.
Nice. All right, check it out. itbusinesspodcast.com. And sounds like you got some good stuff coming up. Marv, I got some emails. I've been asking for those. If you are a regular home Gadget Geeks listener and you want to send me an email, Jim@theaverageguy.tv. You guys have been doing a nice job, because we had the home tech guys last week. We didn't read any emails, so I've got a few stored up. But Marv, you can jump in and comment on these as well.
All right.
Neil sent me a note. Neil's one of the best emailers out there. So Neil, thanks for your note. I think he's referencing the podcast we had with Christian Johnson the week before. So he says, "Hi, Jim. Nice podcast this week. Lots of interesting topics. Thought I'd chime in on routers and access points. I've been collecting UniFi devices from my local auction site and occasionally get a few for Christmas. Haha," he says. In any case, I've heard of way too many routers joining botnets, even routers from very serious providers. So I'm going to stick with my PfSense. I keep a second one ready. This is in reference to PfSense goes down. I'm always worried. Like then what do you do, anyways? He says I keep a second one ready should there be some problem, which so far I haven't had to deal with. That's good. Keep a backup. That means the thing never happens. I'm very happy with my UniFi access points spread over the property. I've got a couple outside. 3 in the house. I should probably do this too. And one a week. Let's see. 3 in the house, and once a week, they all kind of rejuggle themselves to make sure that their frequencies are good. They're also handy if you wanted to do VLANs and multiple SSIDs. So I'm not looking back and have no discomfort at this point with my Wi-Fi. Marv, do you what PfSense routers? What do you in the business space? Are you doing any PfSense? What do you do?
No, so I've gone the route. I've dealt with a bunch of those. I did try UniFi for a while. I tried, Netgear and some of the others. I've settled on 2. And for my customers that need high density stuff, so office buildings where there's a ton of access points from other customers and stuff, we use Ruckus. And then I use a product. It is now part of the Datto networking family. It used to be OpenMesh. And OpenMesh was kind of in that UniFi realm. That was a very nice product. And then it got bought by one of our vendors. And it's still a good product. And that's probably more for your small business. It can be used in residential, except it comes with a monthly management fee. So I can't really recommend that for home users.
Yeah. And UniFi is not a bad solution. Neil, by the way, thanks for your email. Keep sending them. UniFi is a nice place to go. I probably need to, because this has been my complaint, is I'm having trouble getting Wi-Fi out to the shed, and it just drives me nuts. Now, I can just get the hotspot on my phone, and I'm only out there 90 minutes a week, enjoying a cigar with Ed. That's the only time I use it. But it still drives me crazy when I go out there. I'm like, why can't I just get good Wi-Fi out here? Sheds on the back.
Didn't we talk about this before? Didn't we talk about either running a cable out there or getting one of those directional antennas?
Yeah, we did talk
to point it to the shed.
I haven't done either. Yeah. Every week I go out hoping, this is the definition of insanity, but every week I go out hoping something will change, and that I've done nothing to to do so it would. Right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, maybe this week it'll work.
How far away is your shed again?
40 feet.
That's it?
Maybe. Yeah, it's not very far. Yeah.
Just put an access point at the edge of your house and
that's what I need to do. Yeah. Really, it would be as easy as actually just drilling a hole through the base plate for the wire, running the wire out to an access point. I've actually got a cover where all the old phone stuff used to come in. I could just put that in there to protect it, and then it would be just fine. So anyways, Joe says he installed a couple of Unified Dream Machine Pros this week, pleasantly surprised. And this is the Wi-Fi fairy game. Nice. Yeah. Well, I probably just need to get an access point. I'm kind of between, like, we talked about this on the show. I'm using this Bitdefender all-in-one. I really like it. It's the crappiest Wi-Fi router ever. I shouldn't say crappiest. It's just average. And it's one, and if I run an access point, I got to do something different. So anyways, I know I've been talking about this a long time. That's what I do. I take forever to make decisions. So I got some work to do there. Jim Shoemaker sent me a note as well. Jim, always good to hear from you. Marv, I've actually been battling the firmware or the software that comes with my Subaru. I have a 2021 Subaru Legacy. From day one, the entertainment system has just been garbage. Like they must have underpowered it feels like they underpowered the CPU in it for the software they made for it, and it was laggy, and it wouldn't, like, the Apple Connect wouldn't work very well. And so Jim says last week I upgraded my 2019 Forester Starlink multimedia software from version 70 to another version. And he says, been using it for a week now, and the CarPlay connection reliability has never been better. Not one hiccup since I've upgraded. Then he lists some of the cars that are available. Mine is in that list. And he says, anyways, if you're having less than great connectivity reliability and this upgrade applies to you, I encourage you to do it. I did. If the how-to guide doesn't work, I didn't need, by the way, I just connected and then the upgrade worked great. He said the latest show with Christian was very nice. One comment: before I retired, one of my sites had a private 4G LTE system. We talked about private 5G in that show, setting up your own private 5G network. He says it found out the hard way that it was completely dependent on a controller located in a nearby city. When there was a power outage, we lost function on our plant, even though all of our local power protection worked perfectly. Obviously, if that's being hosted somewhere else and their power goes down, you're going to lose it. He says it's a bad situation. We ripped it out and put in a Motorola radio system that was 100% on-site, controller tower, power, etc. If I was looking at private 5G, I'd certainly want to understand whether or not it was truly locally standalone or functionally dependent on something somewhere else. Marv, have you done any private 5G stuff at all? Have you looked into that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, Christian talked about it, and it's basically just a 5G tower that you control all the addresses to.
Yeah, we've got pretty good coverage for everything here, so I've never thought about it myself.
And never a request to work like you do a lot of business Wi-Fi. No requests for this would be like, I think like in this case it was a big Caterpillar plant that they wanted coverage over.
No, the closest thing I've had is a customer that has a warehouse where inside the building the reception is just horrible, so they just worked with Verizon that got them some internal antennas that we deployed and connected to our Wi-Fi network, and that extended the coverage for them for that. But no, nobody down here really asked for that stuff. Nobody wants to pay for anything.
Yeah, that's going to say, as we found out with Christian, buying the bandwidth is like $500,000.
Yeah.
So you need to have in their case, though, it replaced tons of local Wi-Fi equipment. And it doesn't take much in a big, in a gigantic warehouse space to have all that equipment start adding up.
Yeah.
And it going down and some of those kinds of things. So, anyways, Jim Shoemaker, I did upgrade. It was seamless. I did it actually as I was driving home from work one day. So I got the upgrade going in the parking lot, and then it downloaded, and then I took off, and it's just the entertainment system. It's not like my car. It's not like a Tesla where my car is dependent on the software. So and I know that's not always true, but it was done by the time I got home. I shut it off the next morning. I came out. It fired right back up. And Jim, it is much, much faster and much more reliable. I didn't think Subaru was going to be able to do it. I thought they had over-engineered the software for the processor that they put in there, and was thinking, software developers are not used to writing software more efficient. They're just asked to add more features, right? Hey, can you make it do this? Can you make it do that? None of them are like, hey, can you make this thing run on really crappy hardware, type deal. I never thought it was going to get solved ever. I thought, well, this is it. I'm going to have a crappy entertainment system for the life of the car, which I was okay with, but sure enough, it was 2 versions behind. The upgrade fixed it. It connects reliably. It's fast. And Marv, a weird thing, I've never experienced this in a car. The HVAC controls for the car, the UI, it's software driven. So, your fan and temperature and stuff is all on screen. And I kind of like it manual, but in the Subaru, it's part of the software. The UI changed. I never experienced that in a car where, they actually changed the UI on it. Like, it's different dials. Things are in different places. And I was like, oh, that was ballsy because think about, people are not used to things. Imagine if you got in your car one morning and all the controls, like your dashboard controls, they were all different.
Yeah, but there's this, I don't know where this comes from, but that is an extension of the IT world where developers are just, they're in this UI UX phase where everything is being rebuilt and redesigned, and it depends on the engineer that's doing it, which they don't care what the person before them did. They're like, I like the buttons over here, so this is where I'm going to put them.
Yeah.
And you're right. The people like us that are like, I like my stuff in the same spot. I don't care if you upgrade it, but just let it be in the same spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I expected it on a phone, some of those kinds of things, even Windows or Mac, every once in a while you're like, oh yeah, things are going to change in the update. Never in a million years did I think a UI change would roll out to a vehicle, especially like Subaru, and it's completely different.
So here's the question: what platform are they running that off of? Android?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Jim Shoemaker, maybe I don't know.
Because I think that's part of the deal is they're trying to, like Windows is trying to make their platform across all devices the same.
Yeah.
Kind of like Apple. And I think car manufacturers, I think anybody that's doing this stuff, they're all redesigning it so one platform functions on every device the same way.
Yeah. Well, it shocked me. I came out the next morning thinking it would all look the same. Started the car, and I was like, I went to look at the temperature controls. The up and down temperature is a physical button.
Right.
The defrost is a physical button, but everything else is software. And it looked different. And I thought, no way. They kind of slimmed it down a little bit. Like the size was different. The fonts were different. It's like, this isn't Microsoft Word. This is a car, right? Andrew Ball out in chat says he's more of a mechanical gauge guy himself. And I am kind of too for HVAC stuff, for heating, cooling. I like buttons. I said this before. I'd prefer, again, temperature up and down, defrost are all buttons. Everything else, I kind of like buttons, Marv. Do you find yourself sometimes missing in your new Jeep? We talked about this in the pre-show, which you can get if you're a Patreon subscriber.
I was just thinking that my Jeep, yes, the buttons are different for my radio presets.
Yeah.
Because I've got all that 10.1 0.1 inch screen that I never had before. So everything is there. Now the temperature controls are both. There are physical knobs, and there's a little climate button I can push on the screen, and everything shows up there because it's got the different sides. We can program the temperature for both sides of the vehicle. We can have it do auto mode, where we just set the temperature and it will automatically adjust up and down. But I was hitting the buttons for my stations, and I'm like, oh, this is frustrating. Because it's like the phone in my car, and I'm like, I don't want the phone in my car.
It's a little adjustment, you know. You're kind of like, oh, it's Joe, and you just said this, Marv. He said, Joe says my HVAC is on auto 90% of the time. And what drives me crazy, she's sitting over here, so I have to be quiet. But I set it to auto, and then it syncs both sides, and it's the same temperature. As soon as she gets in the car, she hits the button to raise or lower the temperature on her side. That takes it right off auto. And then like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just let it be. But no, that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. So I have to be careful there. So anyways, Jim Shoemaker, thanks for your email. I got the email the day after I'd upgraded. So thanks for doing that. I wouldn't have known, but I did know, and it worked out just fine. So I appreciate you doing that. One more email, Bill Rockhold, who's been on the podcast before. I haven't talked to him in a while. He says, hey, Jim, a long time no speak. I've been catching up on the podcast. You asked about printers. He says, we have 5. A Canon inkjet scanner, an Epson ink tank printer scanner, a Brother black and white laser printer, a Brother multifunction laser, and a Brother color laser. My wife's a school teacher and part-time travel agent. So I'm assuming he has business needs or some kind of needs for all. This was the question, Marv. Do you have a printer? Do you print anymore? Do you have one?
Yes.
Invoices and stuff, right? What do you have?
Well, so at the house, we have just one. It's just a regular laser black and white. But here at the office, so I have my own. Kim has her own. And then we've got 2 around the office, so that if other people come into the office, like where I'm at right now is kind of like the lounge multi-purpose room. So we've got a conference room table, we've got a kitchen over here, and then I've got 2 desks set up on the side. So we've got a laser multifunction over there, and then on my other side, I've got a room where if I had techs full time, they've got their own printer there. So I've got 4 here in the office.
And do they ever get used anymore for the most part?
Not really. I mean, ours do, because I still print a lot of stuff. Okay. And then Kim prints a lot of stuff. She still prints out invoices and bills.
And that sort of stuff. Sometimes you have to do that, right? I mean, we haven't. QuickBooks takes care of some of that stuff.
QuickBooks, we also got we got a thermal printer for UPS and FedEx labels. So we got that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're running a business, so you need some of those around. The question just was, do we even need printers in 2024? And yeah, I think we do. I printed a Menards label. I bought that umbrella we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I bought an umbrella for the deck in the back, a big 13 by 10 retractable umbrella, so we can put that thing up and set underneath it and pull it, because Nebraska weather, it's not the most predictable, so I can't just leave it out all the time. So
I didn't even think about that. I mean, I print so much on a regular basis, I didn't even think about that. I mean, just my regular, when I print out show notes, and outlines, I print documents. So when I did not trade in my old Jeep to the dealer when I got the new one, I sold it privately. And so the people came here to pick it up, and I printed out the bill of sale, and had them sign and all that stuff. So I never even thought about that.
Yeah. Mine's a $60, HP from Walmart or whatever it was. And we do. I printed a Menards rebate for him the other day, but we sure don't. But we don't print very much. So Bill, thanks for that. He goes on to say, You asked what people use for server storage. He says, I have an old Windows 10 box with 30 plus terabytes of spinning drives, still using the drive pool software. And good for you. I am too. I still have that around. It just showed up on a PC the other day. The license from the home server days works with their workstation software. I store TV, movie rips, card files, and 3D printing and scanning docs for pictures. Well, I've asked you before, but how big is do you have local storage just for you or are you doing everything in the cloud?
We do local storage.
Okay.
So I still run a physical network here just to mimic what my clients need. So I've got a domain controller on here, but I've got a physical domain controller, and then I've got a virtual app server that I run on a Synology NAS. And then I've got about 30 terabytes of storage.
How much is used, do you think?
It's probably not as much. It's like 30, 35% maybe.
Okay. So 10 terabytes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was the real question. It came in, and I forget who it was, but somebody was asking, hey, I'm thinking about building something out. What are people doing these days? And so we just spent a little bit of time talking about that. So that's what Bill's doing. I still think we live in a world where if you got some old PC hardware and an old copy of Windows, I mean, you could use Windows Home Server. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could, you could do it on Windows pretty well if you wanted it to go ultra cheap.
Yeah, but what I'm finding, so my frustration in my world is, even I see the comment in there about the HP microservers.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work for storage when you can do NASs so much more efficiently, because there is a little bit of restriction on the Windows servers, even if you're turning them into a file server. The NAS is, at least with Synology, is what I use.
Yeah.
The ability
would you recommend that if for someone thinking about it, would you just recommend just go Synology? It's the easiest way to go.
For me, I think so. Yeah, I did look at, some of the other products out there, and Synology seems to be the easiest. It actually runs some of my business apps in there. And so it's got some nice cloud backup apps that you can do if you want to do a backup to the cloud. It'll back up 365. Mail. It's actually pretty nice. Now it's starting to get expensive because they are now putting restrictions on the drives that they will support. So you have to buy Synology branded drives now with some of the bigger units. You can still use other models, but you're just going to get a big old warning anytime you log in that's going to say these drives are unsupported.
Yeah. Joe says, when Windows 10 is EOL, which I think is next year, right? I think that's the first.
October next year.
Yeah, so it's coming up. He said there's going to be a lot of cheap hardware, 7th gen and before. There's actually a lot of cheap hardware out there right now, just to be honest, right? Don't you?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and some pretty good equipment. Like, you can just look on eBay and or some of those. Do you have a preferred? Do you pick up? Do you surf sites for used hardware or hard drives or any of those kinds of things? Or
no,
you're pretty much buying new, right?
I buy new and then I recycle what I get back from clients.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bill goes on to say, had a lot happening on this end. Laid off from one job, got a new one, total the BMW, parked the race car, bought 2 new SUVs. I've been playing with RC cars, racing and drifting, building an R2-D2 for my stepdaughter, building a 40 by 40 work garage shop for the small car collection we're going to be inheriting from my wife's parents. Also started participating in competition shooting. Bill, nice job.
This guy got his own Yellowstone working.
Wow. Bill, good work.
Film that.
Exactly. Put that on YouTube, man. You could get a whole YouTube channel. He says, glad to hear that you're doing better after your medical scare. I appreciate that. Had to have a 3-centimeter kidney stone removed last year. Oh, sorry about that. Kidney stones. I have not had one of those. Have you had Have you had a kidney stone, Marv?
I
I've
have
heard they're
not.
just the worst. Yeah, I've heard. My son had one. He was in the Marines. The Marine son had one. It was bad. Anyways, he says, hope things continue to go well, Bill. Bill, thanks for the email. Thanks for checking in. If you want to do that, send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. Appreciate you guys. We'll read them on the show as we have time. I had Marv tonight, and we didn't have a ton of time to plan. So I said, hey, I got some emails. They'll have some topics in them. We'll talk about them, but I'll do that as often as I can and bring those emails in. Again, you can send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. I appreciate it. Marv, last week. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, fire away.
So you were on another podcast show that I was half listening to, and my ears perked up.
Which one was this? Which show was this?
Dave Jackson's Ask the Podcast Coach.
The Podcast Coach last Saturday, maybe.
And you made a comment that, desktop PCs are dead. I was like, what?
I did say that. I did say the desktop is dead. To that audience, to podcasters, that may be more true than to this audience. Like, as I think about, I don't know. What do you think, Marv? Here's the context. We were talking about iPads and some of those kinds of things. And we were talking about, I think laptops pretty much have replaced, and you do more corporate settings. I think the corporate world has switched almost completely over to laptops. I don't think anybody's putting in desktops. Now, the difference may be in some environments, they'd be putting those little not dumb, but those small micro PCs in to do some things that may remote into some stuff, some of that kind of stuff.
So,
but your thoughts?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think in the regular consumer world, if you're just talking somebody that is, at home and they're just consuming content, whether they're, online watching Netflix, Hulu, they draft the occasional email, they might do some small stuff. Yes, that's probably true. Tablets and phones are the primary source. I think laptops are becoming the next thing, where if you're going to have a bigger unit where you need to do a ton of typing of something, that's going to be the next thing. But for businesses, gamers, graphic designers, architects, PCs are still the way to go, only because there just has to be some robustness to them, with the ability to do upgrades and add for instance, if you need, one of those 16 gig NVIDIA TI, whatever video cards, they're starting to do those for laptops, but the people buying those laptops aren't the regular consumer.
Yeah.
So all my attorneys, it's desktops. Now, they might be smaller desktops, small form factor, but they're still desktops.
Really?
Yeah, because here's what's happened.
Okay.
The laptops, what they thought they were going to do was go wireless. And the problem is they still have to plug in, because a lot of the business applications, especially if they're doing something that requires a SQL Server database for like a case management system or stuff like that, that still has to be pure wired connection with no disconnects, and Wi-Fi is just not there yet. The speed is there, but the consistency of that connection is not there. So it's just easier for us as techs to say it's got to be a desktop, it's got to be plugged in, and go from there. I have a entertainment company that's trying to go all Wi-Fi, and they're struggling because anytime they're doing presentations and stuff, they're pulling up these large graphic files on Wi-Fi, and they're frustrated. And I'm like, I understand you want the laptop to be mobile, but when you're doing that, plug it in.
Yeah, and we have gone to like docking stations. So, in to this audience, we think of those docking stations you'd click into.
Right.
This is really just a USB, USB-C connection.
USB-C or Thunderbolt or whatever.
Whatever it is. Going to a box, and then your network's coming in, your monitors are coming in, your a couple of your USB devices are coming in. And I mean, that's been since COVID, that has been our configuration. And I kind of thought everybody was headed that direction where, like, why would you put a desktop? Why would, now I get why. But my thinking is, why would you, the laptop pricing isn't that much more than your desktop. But Andrew says, he says we're buying new desktop PCs for a nonprofit office, and because they are cheaper because of this Windows 10. To go to Windows 11, you're going to need a new. That ought to be interesting. Hold on. He says considering tablets and laptops, but rejected them mostly because of battery issues.
Yeah. And, battery issues. Ahead. People losing power cords.
Yeah. I guess I've lived in a bubble. I kind of we issue laptops almost universally at Gallup. And I guess I kind of thought everybody was kind of moving that direction. Now, we're all knowledge workers for the most part. We don't have any kind of nothing else in there, but maybe I was just thinking that everybody was moving that direction. Just as a side note, Tony says that 3 centimeter kidney stone Bill is huge. He says God invented them so men would know what it's like to have a baby. Yeah,
I was going to say something like that, but I'm like, I don't know if this audience is the right place.
No, it's fine. Tony said it for you, and he's in the healthcare field, so he can say it, and got away with it. The whole discussion kind of came up around this idea. Well, I mean, the PC and laptop sales, let's say desktop and laptop sales are down overall because people have moved to their mobile devices for the most part and aren't buying. Most people don't even have PCs at home. Now, this audience completely different, but don't you think like laptops and PCs are just aging in people's houses, and they're like, I listen, my neighbor across the street just pinged me the other day. He's like, my laptop just doesn't even work anymore. I need to do something. I'm like, well, why didn't you replace it? He's like, because 99% of the things I do on my phone. Why would I replace it with something new?
Yeah. I do think that as individuals, the stuff that we need to do, phone or tablet, is going to be primary.
Okay.
But I think when it comes to work and other types of environments, it's probably 50-50. Like you're able to do laptops in your environment. My law firms can't. Another reason they don't do it is because laptops can walk away. A desktop, it doesn't.
Yeah.
They don't want to risk that.
Still can. It just doesn't have. It's not. No, people aren't going to. The workers aren't going to take those home because it's not convenient. Right. And then they're not going to get stolen out of. In California, the theft out of vehicles is so bad right now.
Yeah.
But
the other component to that is we're not fully converted to cloud outside of email and backup. The software vendors they're coming out more and more, but what's happening is businesses are finding that it's not cost effective for them to completely go to the cloud. So they're still going to live terrestrial with their on-prem, whether it's a full server or just a storage server, just something that they can run stuff locally. I've got a couple of customers that had an issue where they had data in the cloud and the vendor went away. They lost their data.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't risk that. So
right on.
It's that catch-22.
Yeah. You think the cloud is like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Everybody moved to the cloud until those cloud servers go away or whatever. Right. Brian, who's not driving anymore. Thank you for saying that, Brian. He's just got home. He says at school, we tend to use desktops over laptops for standardized testing for students, taking advantage of larger screens. And that is true. You can get a much larger screen that way. And they are a little bit cheaper.
Well,
Andrew,
just to that point. So I've got a customer, that entertainment customer we're talking about. So we just purchased graphic laptops for them. They're the ZBook. They're like $2,500 laptops with the NVIDIA 8 gig video dedicated, 32-inch dual screens for them with their docking stations.
Mm-hmm. It's not cheap.
No,
it's not a cheap setup. No. Yeah. And this is the weird thing. For gaming, it would be hard for me to justify a gaming laptop in most cases. In most cases, you're set up in a situation to specifically play. You got a chair, a space, or whatever. You got monitors. By the way, the guys over at Think Computers, head out to thinkcomputers.org. Ryan, I think it's Ryan or Bob, have been posting these different pictures of these monitor configurations that people have, and somebody had this gaming chair that was put almost all the way back, and the monitors kind of came up around the chair, so to speak. So it was like one of those circle things where the monitors goes with it. Right? And then
kind of like the old arcade thing when you got in for the car and it was enclosed around you.
Exactly. And then the other day, someone had posted a picture, or they found a picture where the monitors had been bolted to the wall over a bed, and they came out over the bed and then went down. They went down in an arc over the bed, so you literally could be laying in bed looking up at your monitors.
Wow.
Okay. So maybe I wouldn't go that far. Tony says, and hold on. Andrew says, in my day job, everyone gets a laptop. We're doing away with standalone docks because they're built into the monitors. And in some cases, that's true as well. These monitors are coming complete with just about everything you need. And that works out pretty well. Tony says, finally started using my iPad after I bought the Magic Keyboard, and that does make a difference on the iPads in their usage if you can do it that way. Marv, you have an iPad? Do you use it on a regular basis?
I do. Actually, I've got 3.
3? Yeah. Just because of age, or are they in different? They're spots?
Different purposes.
Don't tell me you have one by the side of your bed that you use just to watch movies before you go to sleep. Okay, good. Phew.
Nope, I've got one as my daily driver that I take with me on the road. I've got one for podcasting, and then I've got one
while you're podcasting. While you're using it while you're podcasting.
Yeah, so I've actually got my soundboard on the iPad. I do my pre-show music and all that stuff through the iPad.
You kind of use it like a what's the button one? What's like the Stream Deck? You kind of use it like a Stream Deck, right?
Yeah, but for the audio stuff.
Yeah.
I've got my Stream Deck over here. I'm trying to learn how to use.
Okay.
And then I got a laptop that's just designed right now for my Logitech Mevo cameras that I'm going to be running.
Oh, right. Okay. And it's going to run the cameras, and then you're going to bring those into, and then what's running the podcast? Is it a desktop?
So I've got, so when I'm using those, I'll be on site and I'll be just running an audio podcast through the Rodecaster.
Okay. The Rodecaster will do that, which is kind of a little mini PC all in itself.
Yeah.
Just dedicated for audio. So, well, that's cool. It's a good way. By the way, everybody's saying happy birthday to Tony. So he's saying thanks out there. Tony, happy to have a good birthday tomorrow. Well, okay. So this is a good, Marv, I'm wrong, I guess, in saying the PC is dead for the most part. I mean, it's dying, right? I mean, don't you think at some point it's gone?
Well, it's weird because I went and looked up some stats and stuff.
Yeah.
And I went and asked, the chat AI, is the desktop dead?
That's a good
And the first answer says, no, desktop PCs are not dead or dying. And it went and listed off the things. So it's not as close, but while PC sales declined in 2022 after the pandemic, this was a short-term drop. Analysts expect delayed purchases to boost the market again through late 2023 into 2024 as users replace aging systems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, the same AI says there's a couple reasons why the desktops stay around, right? Performance and power. You can still get better performance, in most cases out of a desktop. Customization and upgradability. Much easier to replace video cards and hard drives and even upgrade the memory, right? And then it gives some use cases. Gaming, we talked about that. Professionals and creators, right? These are exceptions. This is where the desktop still is needed. Gaming, professionals and creators, business use, right? High usage, or what we used to call, what did we used to call those things, the workstations? Back when, right? Workstations, these big, beefy, powerful, dual processor in some cases. So that's what AI told me. Still need them for those kinds of things.
Yeah. But I think at some point, two things. Once Wi-Fi gets better, and once we have true business applications running in the cloud, that's when it'll start to change.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you're not tied to some sort of server appliance in an office, then it'll be cloud. Because even if you do, remote access VPN back to the office, you've got to have basically a nice little desktop or laptop for that.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree. The market trends, they say, going forward, sales and marketing share. In some cases, the PC market, what's saying here, even though it's slow, there's been some emerging technologies like VR and AR and AI, where that may bring some of those needs back. In other words, we may not do them on a laptop. We may need that endpoint to be a little more robust. Of course, future prospects at integrating with cloud and IoT, which maybe not. Sustainability and life cycles. I do think you get a longer life cycle out of a desktop, just to be honest. I think they last longer than laptops do. So I don't know, it is an interesting, again, my neighbor who has this laptop, I said, I've got an extra. I said, what are you going to use it for? He goes, I need an Excel spreadsheet and surf the web. And I'm like, well, I've got an old Dell Core i7 from a while ago that still works pretty well. It's got an SSD in it and 16 gig of RAM. That should do just fine. Plug a monitor in. Yeah, you'll be in business. He's like, okay. So I'm going to give him a desktop. That feels a little weird, but to be honest, I have a laptop from that same generation. So same year or similar year, Core i5 Ultrabook that just isn't worth anything. It barely runs Zoom at this point. And you're like, yeah, we made some compromises in those days on laptops. And I think we still are doing it in some regards today, that make those laptops not as good.
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily a compromise. I think it's understanding what it is you're buying.
Right.
Because people are still buying on price and not understanding what specs are needed to run what they need, because everybody sees the $399 laptop and they think, oh, this will be fine. But yet it's the low end Celeron, 4-core processor that's really not going to do you well when you need to have a 6 or 8, Core i5, i7, actually even i9 now, or the AMD Ryzen equivalent. But vendors are probably doing this on purpose because they're like, look, we're going to build a disposable industry. We know that we're replacing iPads every couple of years. We're replacing phones every couple of years. Replace your laptops every couple of years.
I don't want to. Well, it's not me. I'll be honest. I get issued one from work, and I think we're on a 3-year cycle because of warranties. They want to get the warranty is 3 years, and they want to get it out of the cycle before the warranty is up, and so they're, every 3, maybe 4 years we're getting new, we're cycling them out. We own them at that point, and then they're passing them on to employees, which is a nice gesture. We get them for way under market value,
right.
Which is kind of nice, right? Last 2 laptops that I've worked with, I own now, and I've used them for a variety of things that are. I kind of use it like people use iPads, just to be honest, right? Zoom calls and some of those kinds of things. And I'll be honest, I prefer a laptop to an iPad or to my phone, but the apps are getting good on some of these. The apps are getting pretty good on some of these. Like on an iPad where you're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing with the iPad, I think that, person said earlier, getting the magic keyboard, it's really the keyboard is key
for
with
sure.
Those, because trying to tap on the screen, I don't like it.
No. Yeah.
But I've purchased those cases with the keyboards in them, and I'm like, I don't like those either.
Yeah. Marv, the kids aren't going to know how to type on. They're I don't know where it's going with them, but like we like handwriting is going the way of the dinosaur, and I kind of tend to think that maybe we'll head that way with the physical keyboard at some point. Don't you think?
Well, you know what I did for the first time this past weekend? I spoke into my phone to send a text.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But that's that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Everything is it's going to be a quick little voice text. And
yeah. My daughter was like, "You're still typing with one finger on my phone?" I'm like, and I'm like, yeah, and she's got 2 thumbs going, she's just ripping out on that thing. And you kind of got to wonder at some point if it'll all be 100% voice.
So between voice, predictive typing, and AI,
yeah,
writing will be ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, we already can't find pencils anywhere, right?
Well, the other day I was writing something. I have a pen. If you're watching the video, I have this pen. This is what pens look like if it's been a while. And I didn't get very far. My hand started cramping up. Oh my God, I need to write more. I'm losing this. Well, you mentioned AI, and I noticed in ChatGPT, so the OpenAI version of it, they sent me a little prompt this week, maybe, that said, "Hey, would you like?" Because I've been using the free version of it, right, the 3.5.
Right.
And they sent me a note and said, "Hey, would you like to use the 4.0 for free?" And I said, yes. And I don't know if it's a trial. I don't know if it's going to stay. I didn't read up on it very much, but I think I may be, I could still upgrade and get all the other, I think they're at 4.5 on the upgrade now or something like that. But we're kind of past the hype phase of this. I'm not hearing as many people talking about it. And yet AI continues to get more and more powerful, I think, every single week in some of the things we're doing. Is there anything new that you've seen on that front that excites you, that you're using, or scares the bejesus out of you?
I don't know if it excites me, but all of the vendors in our space are all adding AI into their products. So I was at a vendor today, Kaseya, one of the big vendors in our space that does remote access for us, patching, antivirus, EDR, endpoint device, disaster recovery, and all of these things. And so they're now building AI into not just the products to help us process tickets faster, but with the integration of our products. So a lot of what we deal with is, we get a call from a customer, we take care of them using the ticket system. We've got to document changes and stuff. They're building all of these things into AI so that as we're doing this, AI will automatically bring up, hey, here's some knowledge base articles that might help you with this problem. Oh, by the way, this ticket seems to be associated with this device. Do you want us to attach it so that it, gets the notes attached? By the way, you might need these passwords to log into. I mean, it's a whole process.
Yeah.
That on the one side, it's going to make our jobs a lot easier. But on the other side, it could open up a can of worms to allow for people to do things that they probably shouldn't.
Yeah. I heard an interesting story today. I was talking to somebody, and there was a professor somewhere who had created like 15 of his own AI bots that had all specialties. So one was like a therapist, one was a friend who had these things happen to him, like all these different scenarios to kind of distill it down, because you can't just let AI run. It needs some parameters, right? It needs to know who it is. So in the article, at one point, he began to let them talk to each other. And he goes, that was a bad idea. That was a really bad idea. And some of them just kind of went sideways. He's like, well, I had to shut that one off.
Yeah.
Oops, I had to shut that one off. So I don't know
it will be interesting. I mean, obviously we're going to have to redesign what we allow AI to do. So did you hear, what was the university where there was a graduation ceremony, and instead of a commencement speaker, they had an AI robot come out.
Oh.
And the students went berserk. Were not happy.
Good. No, not happy.
Not happy. I'll have to find that story, but it was, the students, like, when they found out they weren't having a commencement speaker, they tried to put together one of those polls to, boycott graduation if it happened.
Yeah, well, you could. I mean, shoot, some commencement speakers might be going to ChatGPT and say, write me a commencement speech and make me sound like, whatever. And that's their, you would think it's probably pretty good at it. Actually, it's probably pretty good. Listen, most of those speeches are kind of hokey and some of them get political. Some of them, you're like, maybe, I don't know, maybe ChatGPT is a little bit better. Joe says in chat, he says, try to get Copilot to calculate the weight to counterbalance a 14-foot pole with a wireless AP access point on it and factor in wind load. It told me how to calculate it, but it just wouldn't solve the equation. And maybe that's Copilot. Did you try the regular? I wonder how that'd be different.
Yeah, I've not used Microsoft Copilot. The vendor that I was at today, they added Copilot as the name to one of their products. IT Glue Copilot or something. So they're all integrating Copilot of some form or fashion.
Tony says the chat bots that use fake typing sounds here. You don't really need. Well, and Andrew says students deserve insights from a human. And in some ways, those are insights from a human. They're just a bunch of different humans. Like, the AI is not making this up. I mean,
these are not the humans you are looking for.
It's taking it from somewhere. Yeah, we interesting times we live in. I think we're in, and maybe to your point, Marv, we're in the trough of disillusionment, right? There was the hype, I forget what they call it, the top of the hype cycle, and then it starts to slide down where we kind of think, oh, maybe it can't do everything we thought it can do, or the software just needs time to work out the next set of bugs. And we may have a situation like this where students, hey, it sounded cool if we had AI do the commencement speech, but maybe the students are like, how dare you?
Well, it's weird because remember now, the whole issue with AI is intellectual property and people beginning to sue because people are using AI to create, clone sounds of them. Remember what was it, last year when they started doing all the celebrities singing in AI? And now people are using that on real people. And I think there was, I have to look and see if I can find that article where I think it was a theater group ended up suing because the management actually used AI to replace them so that they wouldn't be needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are the types of things where, okay, AI maybe goes too far, but then you have the situations like was brought up earlier where we try to get AI to do certain things, and it just it gets us 80%,
Yeah.
and that 20% might be crucial that you still need a human to make work.
Well, the large language model that all this is based on other people's work, right? I mean, that's the whole premise of this thing. And so if you say, okay, let's just say for a second, everything is intellectual property, which it is technically, right? And in some regard, what's left? Not very much. I mean, if we restricted AI, and by the way, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, but if we restricted AI to just that was in the public domain, like I don't know if that would right. I mean, you kind of think like that's there's not a lot out in the. I mean, there is, but do we really? So, I mean, the whole premise of it is kind of flawed in that way. If it's all this stuff is somebody's IP, and if you took now as humans, we do this. We don't. There's no original for most of us. There's no original thoughts. We're just taking other things that we learned from other people and putting them together. And right.
So here's what AI has done. Remember when your parents purchased the Encyclopedia Britannica?
Yeah.
And you needed to do a school report. And you physically went through the encyclopedia, took out passages, put them onto paper, and tried to make sure that it wasn't looking like plagiarism.
Yeah. Which I got caught one time, just to be clear. I got caught.
So AI is just the next step, because from there we got to the internet where you could actually do these searches in Google and copy and paste. The difference now is that AI does all of that for you at a much faster pace.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's just pulling from a much bigger pool of information. Sometimes it's the wrong pool,
Yeah. No, right on.
We've got to figure out some way to rein it back in and get it right.
Well, interesting days ahead on this AI stuff. I think we're at the trough of disillusionment, and I think there's a lot of things still to learn about this. It does make some things very, very easy, and it's coming up with lists of things and ideas for stuff and generating some things to get you started. This one, a plan ahead. The one of the example here, it says, "Help me relax. Plan a mental health day for me." And so it says, of course, Jim, I'd help plan a perfect day of rejuvenation. It would be great to know more about your favorite forms of relaxation. Here's a few questions to get you started.
Yep.
And then it asks me some questions.
Here's seven tips to use AI to acquire and retain customers.
Yeah. Is it stealing, or is it just common knowledge? Is it, so I don't know. I think we have interesting times ahead. Well, Marv, I think with that, we'll wrap it. Like I said, we always get to the end. Thanks for coming out tonight. And thanks for you double dipped tonight. You had something else going on and you ran from that place to here. And so thanks for doing that. I appreciate it.
I just ran from that room to this room.
Oh, okay. Was it virtual? For some reason, I thought you were on site somewhere.
Yeah, it was virtual. I was on site this morning through this afternoon, and then came back, and I just did three virtual things in a row. So.
Oh, well, thanks for, it's always great to have you on. Thanks for coming out. itbusinesspodcast.com if you want to go out there and catch up with that. And I'm sure it's better than this. So maybe listen to a few of those.
I will say, so my last 2 episodes, well, not my last two lives. So my very last episode, 633, time is a precious resource. I actually have a couple of rants about working with techs.
Okay.
But a good listen is 630, where I actually share a story about how I almost got sued by a customer.
Okay.
And how we prevented that lawsuit from happening.
If they were going to go out and listen to one, that's the one 630 that you would.
Yeah, I'd say 630.
Right. Okay. All right. Super cool. Well, thanks for coming on. I'll remind folks that next week, Gretchen Schoenstein, you've never heard of her before, but she's run over 100 half marathons, in the last. She had a medical condition, and the doctors told her, she's a good friend of mine. She said the doctors told her, "You're never going to do anything again." She's like, "I don't think so." And so she's put it together, a little bit of grit, and we're going to hear her story a little bit. There's a lot in her running to do these. She's done these back to back half marathons. Her goal was to run over 100, and she did that. A little bit of tech in there, but it's just a great story. So Gretchen's coming on next week. Rich Hay is coming in. Rich has been doing some astronomy stuff with a tech telescope. So that'll be, you guys know Rich. He's been on the show a bunch of times before. I'm off the week after that. Then Aaron Lawrence is back on the 13th. I'm going to talk about the hummingbird, the automatic hummingbird. That's what we're going to talk about that. And she's been working on 1 or 2 of those as well. So we'll spend a little time doing that. And then another buddy, Adam Hickman, is going to come on. I'll let that one be a surprise. We got some cool ones. And then way in July, Ed Sullivan's coming back. He ordered that iPad Pro. That's the M4. And he's going to Europe and taking it with him, and he's going to try it out. And he's going to come back and say, I mean, he has a MacBook, but is he going to switch? Will this be his new daily? Will the iPad Pro be the daily driver? We'll find out. You'll have to keep listening. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Big thanks to Christian Johnson as well, who was on 2 weeks ago. Maple Grove Partners, secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. And, of course, that's Christian. Plan's still at $10. He's still fighting inflation every single day. You can't, in the time that you have not used his hosting, coffee went from $5 to $10. So you can't get coffee for any less than, I think I got a latte the other day. I think it was $7.50. Marv, $7.50 for a cup of coffee. What's going on?
It's $1 per K cup, so I get you.
What is going on out there?
Hey, everything has gone up.
I know. Total chaos. Dogs and cats living together. It's total chaos out there. And so big thanks to Christian as they support the network. And if you need some inexpensive, well-done hosting, check it out. MapleGrovePartners.com. Be back next week. We got 2 weeks in a row, so come back and join us live. Thanks for coming out, those joining us live. And like I said, if you want to join the Patreon group, head out to theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. See you next week. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.
Night, night.